introducing yourself, but also your background, your role, and then maybe your background experience in terms of teaching. And I don't know, maybe Kyle, if you want to go first.
Sure. My name's Kyle Hansen. I'm the K through 12 content lead for health and physical education for Minneapolis Public Schools. I've been in this role for just a little over a year. Previous to this, I taught at Bethune Community School for 10 years, which is a north side Minneapolis elementary school. And I've done a lot of summer school stuff with middle school kids and biking. And um, yeah, I'm here today
Perfect.
and thanks.
All right, Amy, how about yourself?
My name's Amy Wardell, and I'm the pre-K through 12 PE and health coordinator for St. Paul Public Schools. I've been in this role for almost a year now. And previously to that, I was one of the AVID district directors for St. Paul Public Schools for about 5 or 7 years. I can't remember. Before that, I taught middle school PE, health, and AVID at Hazel Park Preparatory Academy in St. Paul Public Schools on the east side. And I also did some MYP coordinating and athletic directing there as well. And I also do some synchronized swimming officiating for the Minnesota State High School League.
Awesome. Nice. Well, I guess we can just start with that first question, and I guess whether Kyle or whether Amy, you want to emphasize and want to take it, but each of you can have time to discuss it. But I guess what is the level of need kind of in each of your districts in terms of health, physical education, developmental adapted physical education, in terms of teachers? Like, are you at a shortage? Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
When I came into this role last year, I was short. I was preparing to hire potentially 10 new educators because I had variances that were ending for teachers. I had retirements. I had teachers let go, people leave. And there suddenly it was a game of chess. Who's available? Who's applying? Can we get them before other school districts get them? And it was a game of who can get to who first. And it actually became a really competitive and big issue between the openings that principals were trying to get to certain candidates first to try to snatch them before. So it was kind of a big problem. And I still have one opening currently that was open all last summer and is still open. And I know that I will have openings this next fall as well.
That well, but we were kind of in the same boat where we had these positions opening. I know we start the hiring process early, but they don't have actually get offered the job until like a month or two into it, from my understanding. Which is kind of, you know, causes, a lot of anxiety, I'm sure, for candidates and stuff too. Like, am I going to get hired? And then if they do apply somewhere else and they're able to hire that person sooner, maybe that person accepts that job because then it's the security that they have. But right now, for most of our positions are mostly just health and phy ed. There's not as much depth.
In terms
In
of
the
need?
Yeah, in terms of need, it's mostly having a valid physical education and or health education. If they have both, that'd be great for especially middle school and high school, because we're really trying to get all of our students receiving health education through middle school and in high school, and then also incorporating some into the elementary. We have a lot of tier one teachers right now that so they're not necessarily have any background in teaching or any pedagogy or have taken any content area specific tests. So that's another thing, is just keeping up to date with them and making sure that they, at least have a tier one license, that they renew that license, that they do the stuff that they need to do as a first year teacher, and then, potentially hiring them back the next year, or figuring out motivating them to maybe get into a program to pursue an actual degree in teaching, so then we could hire them on a higher tier. But I know for now we do have a couple positions still opening. We've had quite a few retires in the last years, especially with like COVID and stuff too. But for the most part, I think we're kind of getting to like this like where there's a older generation that's approaching that retirement.
Right.
They're within 5 years or less. And then we got this new generation coming in. So it will be interesting to see in the next few years how we can transition that, and then also they'll make sure that, you know, our teachers basically have a license and are qualified, because, 10 years ago, physical education jobs are really hard to find. And
Yep.
nowadays it's kind of, they're posted everywhere, and MDE's made changes to the licensure and who can receive a licensure. So that's opened the doors for some people, but then also there's a lot of work they need to do to continue to keep that license,
Yep.
and for us to follow through and make sure that they did the work to make sure that they have a valid license.
Right. And I think, looking at it from my perspective in higher education, it's hard for those teachers who are on that tier 1 or tier 2 to teach a year, teach 2 years, but then be told, okay, well, now you got to get to year 3. And for a lot of them, it means they basically have to stop and come to a institution like MSU Mankato, but we're not set up to provide. The only way we're set up to provide that for them is in a face-to-face manner on a Monday through Friday, right? So we're not assisting them. So I think that's kind of a thing to understand too, because obviously Minnesota did create that 4-tier license because of the issues we're seeing. But I guess Amy too, are you seeing, do you have teachers on those tier 1, tier 2 licenses as well, like Kyle was highlighting?
Yes, and I even have some teachers that are currently in college to get their teaching license. So I have a teacher that's going through Concordia Moorhead
Yep.
right now, and then this will count as his student teaching while he's doing this as well, because they offer it all online.
Yep.
I have a lot of teachers, tier 1, tier 2, that are tier 1 specifically, but now that they're finding out that they can go to get a license online through Concordia, they're all flocking to sign up there.
Right.
I think I had last year to see if we could do something like that have undergrad degrees, but they don't want to go back for an undergrad.
Right.
And so they're all going up there or doing this online option, because the other thing too is able to do it online, and then as soon as they sign up for the program, they're tier 2 and they can save their position.
Okay.
So in saying 2, you don't get cut, only tier 1's getting. My issue that I'm having is I have a lot of middle school, mainly PE teachers that are also teaching health that don't have a health license.
Okay.
One of my concerns, and it's, I mean, you can only do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I have a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 teachers.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, in terms of where just in physical education in general, I think it's tough because you want the teachers, but at the same time, you want to give them the appropriate training so they're ready, right? And, online is great. And at times that is the easiest way, but, I think some would question too, like, are they getting what they need to be doing? But right now, I think I think that is the easiest way, because I know I get a lot of students who are in that same boat, and it's like, I basically have to tell them, I'm sorry, but the only way you can do this through our program is to basically stop what you're doing and then come down here, which just isn't realistic. Right.
Right.
So I guess too, thinking about how do you continue to go about trying to fill these vacancies, and whether Kyle, you want to start, I guess.
Sure. So I did reach out to some universities in the beginning. We actually partnered with Augsburg's physical education, I think, content lead. His name's Mike Humphreys, and he actually brought a couple of his students to one of our PDs where they actually led the teachers in some pickleball stuff. So not only they were collaborating and then also getting experience and getting feedback from veteran physical education teachers. So I think just the communication with them, that actually led to us being able to hire one of them, which was great.
Yeah.
But it's a similar role as Amy was saying. He's a little older gentleman, needs to be working, can't just go, live in an apartment and go to a university for a couple of years, as a wife and kid. So he was able to, he already had a short-term sub license, was able to get that tier 1, is going to have physical education. So he was able to get hired at a school that had a full-time physical education teacher to be his cooperating teacher.
Okay.
To do his student teaching. So that was kind of nice that it's a win-win for both of us.
For sure.
But I just think, yeah, just getting out there and marketing, what Minneapolis and St. Paul schools have to offer. We're bigger schools, we're diverse schools. Just letting candidates know that what we have to offer. I think we got competitive salaries and stuff like that, and just attracting them.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, Amy, would you have anything to add to in terms of, how you're trying to currently go about to fill those vacancies?
Yeah, so one thing I thought of right away is I know we were asked by a couple local colleges, hey, would you be interested in having any student teachers? My thought was right away, oh, we can get them. And I happen to have a student teacher right now that is already been hired to start at the end of January because I have a teacher retiring in January.
Yep.
Come to find out, it was his elementary school, and that was his elementary school PE teacher he's replacing.
Nice.
Which is a kind of cool and unique thing. But also when I went to MinShape, making those connections with potential, or soon to be graduates. And we hired some brand spanking new teachers straight out of college this year. And I heard one of them talking to his former peers from Winona, and they're like, how'd you get hired? And I heard him say, well, she gave me a chance. She interviewed me. I have no problem giving anybody a chance because somebody did that to me at one point.
Right.
We're not looking for, veteran teachers. We're looking for teachers and people that are excited to work with our kids that want to be here and working with kids in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And so I think that in itself, yeah, bring it on. Let's get some new, fresh ideas in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess, leading off of trying to fill those vacancies, also seeing avenues available to assist just with the teacher shortage in general, like you both kind of highlighted, but are there other things youth can think of in terms of trying to fill these teacher shortages in general?
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, part of it's a system problem in St. Paul of HR not being quick enough to post them and then get them hired before the other districts in the state are doing it. I think another big issue is the fact that there are only 2 local universities in Minneapolis, St. Paul area that are offering PE and health licensures right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd agree upon that. And then too, just like the collaboration, like maybe, at MinShape, one of the sessions could be, hey, if you're going to be graduating at the end of this year, we got this session where you're going to be able to go in and meet all these people that do the hiring for these districts. We can connect with them, give them our cards, and basically we're setting, the ground for when they do hire, reach out. We want to interview. We want you.
Right. Yeah. And I think for future professionals, right, that would be huge because it would just be one more door that could potentially be open for them.
Yeah. I kept telling them, don't wait for the job to post. If you want to work in St. Paul, just email me or contact me because I'm going to know what's open and available. And I can make those connections faster than putting in your application, submitting it, waiting, seeing what happens. I'll just connect you straight with the principal and they're going to get it done because they're the decision makers.
Yeah. And we know more about the qualifications, and I think even HR sometimes they'll pass someone through that they think that was qualified, but then I'll go through and look and like, no, they actually, can't get a license or don't have a license. And I think, just us being able to look at it first, we can know whether or not, and then even what school might be the best fit depending on, what they share with us.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I think of just the connection. It was through one session that we made. Right now, I have a name and a face to both of you in the districts that you're in. And, for me, I'm not the one that sets up like the student teaching. That's the Office of Field and International Experience here at MSU Mankato. But if I know that there's a need, and I know I have students that live in the surrounding Minneapolis, St. Paul area, I mean, I know the Office of Field Experience can set up student teaching as long as they have supervisors in those areas, right? So I think in terms of the connection we could build, as long as we can find supervisors, I mean, there's nothing saying that we couldn't place students up there. And then if you create that pipeline, I mean, I think it's just a win-win for everybody.
And
I mean,
first year teachers, oop,
yeah.
you can go, Amy.
I was going to say, we have 60 schools to pull from,
Mhm.
just in my district alone, 40 elementary schools, and then 20 secondary schools. It's not hard or a problem to get students in for their elementary experience, middle school and high school experience,
Yep.
because we have so many different schools.
Right. Yep. And more than likely, you're going to have cooperating teachers who would definitely welcome student teachers.
Yes, yes, because there's so many options.
Yep.
And I was going to add too, I know our tier 1 teachers and our new teachers all receive a mentor that kind of help them and just support them through that first year. And I think they do some observations too, as well as the principal. But even if we could work with their department and somehow and say, hey, you know, this is a great way to get more candidates, you know, and maybe it's not even just physical education, but in specialists in general, you know,
Yep.
just specialists all around. So I feel like we're always short. Um, but hey, this is a really cool thing where you can do your student teaching um, here, and then you're supported by the mentor, and then you also have a cooperating teacher like that may be teaching their own physical education classes, but you two are reflecting afterwards, or however, whatever needs to be done to fulfill the student teaching.
Right. Right. Yep. Yeah, I guess in terms of the recruitment, we've been kind of highlighting that, but of very importance is retaining those teachers you have, right? So I guess thinking about like professional development and so forth, what do you think would be needed or, you know, advocated for in terms of trying to retain those teachers who you have versus teaching a year, 2 years, and then maybe jumping ship and either staying in teaching and going somewhere else or just getting out of teaching completely?
I think highlighting
Uh,
what Kyle said about mentors is really important, but then I also think of like high quality, engaging professional development and giving teachers the opportunity to actually try the professional development. That was one of my biggest concerns coming into my role is, oh my gosh, what if I plan something that they're going to hate? What if they're, you know, they're not going to like this? But they're just really, especially the PE teachers, they just want something that they can take right away and bring to their class and implement.
Mhm.
They want to learn these new activities, and they might even not be new, but there may be something they haven't done for 15, 20 years because we've had teachers that are in the same positions for so long.
Right. Yep.
yeah, I believe that too. We just, yeah, a lot of teachers have been in their same thing. And, you know, even with going and observing teachers, we just did a job alike too. So with all our new teachers, and I'm hopefully going to keep this going. And Amy, we talked about it, but we went and observed 2 high schools with the new teachers to see how kind of some veteran teachers were doing. Um, is it always the best? No, but you know, one was really good, one was okay. But the one that was really good, you know, those students took a lot away from that.
Sure.
I think at least a lot of things that they could use, and that's what I focus PD on too. Is I want you to come, I want it to relate to you, I want you to take something that you can use and go use it in the classroom or with your students or wherever, an aha moment. And I've really been trying to get our PDs more engaging, where it's not you show up and there's a PowerPoint and we sit and we
Yep.
lecture all day, but we've been doing partnering with community partners around the area. So we've gone to like Inner City Tennis, which is a nonprofit that works in some of our schools to teach students, mostly of color, the game of tennis. So they have in South Minneapolis, they actually have this huge dome with like 8 tennis courts, and we all went there to learn not only about their program, but then they kind of taught us just like kids, and um, it was fun. I mean, some of
Yeah.
the teachers were getting pretty competitive out there. And then lastly, we've gone to the trailhead here at Theoworth Park, where they offer skiing,
Yep.
cross country skiing, and there's biking and all that. So then we had one there, and we brought in a couple different community partners. There's a first tee golf one.
Okay.
There was the tennis one, and then there was the skiing one. So really giving them those resources too at our PDs, I think, has been impactful. And then lastly, I've reached out to some of our teachers too on if there's anything that they want to share. Is there any aha or light goes off favorite activity, just something that you think everyone else should know? And I had about 5 present at our last PDs, and that was perceived very positive by the rest of the teachers. So,
Nice.
That
Yeah,
was one thing I was gonna add, is that, we were able to bring a lot of teachers to the MinShape conference at the beginning of the year.
yep.
And the expectation was if you're gonna go and the district's paying for you, that you would then come back and present during professional development. And, I have teachers planning to I have a PD coming up this Friday, and a teacher is presenting a bunch of different activities that she did. And I think having leaders or building leaders within your district is really important, and having the perception of it's not just me, I'm not the one that knows. If
Right.
in reality, it's all of you teachers having that background and the knowledge to share it with everybody.
Yep.
Because you're the experts, you're the ones that are in the schools every single day doing this. I'm just the one that's doing all the behind the scenes stuff to make sure that it's going smoothly. And I think that that is always received really well, and really building up teacher leadership in the district, because then you feel like what you're doing and what you're saying really matters.
Yeah.
And so that's another big thing that we've been trying to do to encourage retention of our teachers. I was able to put together a PE teacher leadership committee, elementary through high school. And what is the vision and the mission of PE in St. Paul moving forward? And what are we going to do to ensure that we're not only teaching the standards, but we're also supporting educators in a way that is conducive to what they're doing?
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think, both of, I think what you highlighted was just the meaningfulness of it, right? So Kyle, in terms of you highlighting that connection you're building with the community, but then relevant stuff, right? Going to the tennis place and taking back what they learned and actually applying it into their classes, I think is huge. And I look at it from a higher education standpoint, like the conversation we had in terms of skateboarding, like I would not have a problem, coming up and doing like a presentation on how to incorporate skateboarding at a very basic level with teachers. But I think the cool thing, which you guys highlighted, was I could bring my own teacher education students who I've taught how to do it, and we could teach it. And then that connection could be built, and my students could see that, well, they themselves are teachers because they're teaching the teachers, but it's relevant, important information. But yeah, I think that meaningfulness is huge in terms of professional development. Yeah, I guess as we kind of, finish up, any kind of final thoughts just in terms of, what we've talked about, whether it's from either of you? I think there was some really good information covered.
I think my biggest concern is that, like Kyle said before, we're going to have a massive amount of teachers retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. And I'm concerned that there are not going to be enough, because it's not just St. Paul and it's not just Minneapolis thing either. We're just larger districts. And I'm worried that as they retire, there will not be enough candidates available for everybody.
Right. Yep. And I was telling Kyle before, we're seeing that down here in the Mankato districts, and even the rural areas, right, where I'm getting principals that emails, I've got a vacancy I need to fill, and I had one applicant, or I don't, like you said, I don't think it's going to get any better. So I think we have to find more creative ways to recruit more, and definitely try to hang on to those teachers who enter the fields. Yeah, I guess I think this was very beneficial, but any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously too, obviously we want to try to attain as many educators of color as we can, is always a priority, but it comes down to who's qualified for the position. And I know, like, we've done some things in our district, like we used to have a grow your own program, which was for people who are in like maybe an AE role or
Yep.
an associate educator role, to keep that job, but then also go to classes. I think it was at night. It was through the U of M that they did it, where then they were working towards actually receiving a teaching license, not necessarily in physical education, but I think it was just a general teaching. But
Yep.
figuring out more opportunities for people like that too, or how can we get these tier 1 teachers enrolled in, like Amy, you're saying, an online program that want to pursue and want to get a higher tier and be a full-time teacher. How can we support them and to getting the education that they need to then get the qualifications?
Another thing too is last year, because I knew I had a bunch of openings, we were able to offer a hiring bonus.
Okay.
And so continuing to kind of be aware of who's retiring or who might or might not be leaving. So then if that's an option again, continuing that, because if I'm gonna have 10 openings again, then yes, I need to have some incentive to come hire, apply here and,
Right.
don't just go to the suburbs, even though they hire quicker.
Yep. No,